In music, we use the first 7 letters of the alphabet to name our notes. So if we start with A and then just go through the first 7 letters, we get to G and then we just repeat. It goes back to A and so on. If the notes are getting lower, we need to count backwards. Let's say we start on A, we go down to G and then F, E, D and so on. And that's all pretty straightforward. However, it's a little bit misleading perhaps because the way that looks, you might think, oh, these notes are all equally spaced. And in actual fact, the distance between some notes is different. So the way to quickly appreciate that, I think, is to look at a piano keyboard, even a badly drawn one. And this is something that's worth doing, worth drawing out, because it's a great reference point. A piano keyboard, or any instrument with a keyboard layout, such as xylophone, glockenspiel, synthesizer, whatever it might be, has the same pattern of notes, and the layout is 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3, and so on across the entire instrument. You need to know that the note C is placed to the left of the 2 black notes. And that sound of these 2 notes makes what we describe as an octave. Any 2 notes that are 7 different letter names apart. It's the same note but at a different register. I can now fill in the sequence of letter names here, just using the white notes. And if we now have listened to that sound from C to C with all the other letter names in between, there's a sense of arrival when we get here. And if we play down that same sequence of notes, we get a similar sense of arrival when we arrive at the bottom too. And of course, this is the sound of a major scale. Something that we need to notice that is not clear just by looking at the letter names themselves is that some notes are closer together than others. So from E to F, we have a half step or semitone, and between B and C, we have another half step or semitone. And that's one of the ways that we measure the distance between notes. We use tones or whole steps and semitones, half steps. Every other pair of notes, C to D, D to E, F to G, G to A, and A to B, all have a note in between. So that distance is a whole step or tone. And if we now look at that sequence of letters from C right up to C an octave above, there's a set pattern of tones and semitones. C to D, D to E, E to F, right next door, F to G, G to A to B, and B to C. This sequence of tones and semitones actually spells out the sound of a major scale. And in fact, if we just get rid of these letter names. This is kind of a formula, and it actually doesn't matter what note name you start on here. If you start on any note and then have a gap of a tone, gap of a tone, gap of a semitone and so on, you'll end up on the same letter name 1 octave higher, and you'll have the sound of a major scale. So how can we practice this? I think the first thing is just to draw out the alphabet, starting on A and finishing on G, and repeat. And then perhaps just draw in where the notes are only a half step or semitone apart. E to F is always a half step. B to C is always a half step. And all the other intervals, all the other note names are separated by a black note, and consequently they are a tone apart, a whole step apart. So you could do that, and I would also get a keyboard or keyboard type instrument and just have a play with it. Listen to the sound of whole and half steps, and perhaps work out a major scale that doesn't start and finish on C, that starts and finishes on a different note, and see if you can work out how to maintain that sequence of whole and half steps. And that will help you get an appreciation of how the musical alphabet works.